How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm really good.
First
I'm
of all,
all
thank you so much for joining and thank you so much for taking our time.
my pleasure. It's always good to speak to you, Mustafa.
It's always pleasure to have you guys and you guys share your experience with all of us and especially the topic you have brought up today. It's something also new for me.
It's even better, and we have a good question to go through.
Yeah. Okay, so first I would like you to introduce yourself because this is going to be recorded and it is going to be on YouTube for life
For-
till the time YouTube is there. Yeah.
yeah. So that's
Okay, tell
sure.
us
I
about
mean,
yourself.
so I'm Nicolas Versin. I'm the founder and the CEO of UE, and I've been working on the data and AI space for 15, 20 years now. I didn't count so precisely. But rather than that, I've been working, let's say, on building and delivering software for large organization for all my career. So like maybe 25 years now. So always, yeah, like this idea of not only, building cool products and cool tools, but making sure that it's actually being used and how it's going to be deployed and how it's going to have an effect on organization. And before founding UE, I've been a few years in a consulting company, also working on those, let's say, strategic transformation issues and how do you make sure you build the right technology foundations to support the strategic ambitions. So yeah, so I founded UE 5 years ago. We are based in France, and we have kind of a unique platform to help organization have I have different ways to present that. One of them is to have a disciplined approach to how you drive innovation in a way, and making sure you want to take risks, you want to be bold and creative, but at the same time you want to have some kind of discipline to make sure that you drive things the right way and adopt what we call a value-driven mindset. Making sure that everything that's being done is done for a good business purpose, business objective, and so yeah, that's where I come from.
Nice pleasure. So you have been totally into data world or you have been into software or application before?
Yeah, I was initially in software. I've been doing software for the telcos in the early 2000s and even a bit before. And then since let's say 2000, 2007 maybe or something like that, I've been extending that to data and analytics software in a way, and then the analytics platforms and so on. So I started with the software world and then moved into data and AI. And that's probably somehow, when I really understand the current trend about how do we bring all the best practices that come from the software development world to the data and AI world in terms of, those DevOps practices, continuous integration, continuous testing, agility. So there's many things, we've matured in the software space and that are now coming into the data and AI space. And I think that's a really good thing and a sign of maturity of the industry.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, you have come from software engineering and you feel bringing a lot of practices from software engineering towards data world really helpful, right?
Yep.
What about the challenges? Because I feel a lot of challenges when an architect is from application world and they start building data, right? And we all know that applications can change as it goes into a development. You can change screens, you can do that stuff, but which we call it agile mode, right?
Yep.
But when we talk about data, once you define an data model or foundation, the moment you change one field, everything changes, right? So how what do you think, how you balance it, that yeah, application mindset versus data supplementing each other rather than, becoming a blocker for each other?
So that's a good point. So in what you mentioned, there are many things that are similar. For example, if you think about that data, you need the data contract, which is basically what we have when we talk about APIs for applications. It's the same. If you want to do application
Yeah.
integration, you need to have stable APIs, the same way you need to have stable data contracts to communicate. There is also a lot of good things coming from the data observability and data things in terms of all the pipeline for data transformation, data ingestion, data acquisition need to be built with all the software best practices. You know, how do you make sure that you have monitoring when it breaks, you have proactive quality tracking and stuff like that.
Mm.
Um, now, um, what is tricky with data when you start mentioning data quality, basically, because then data quality or data completeness might change. You know, of course, you don't have the right to change a field because it will break everything. The same way, if you change a behavior in an app, it could break everything. Um, and that's why you need to have a very thorough approach about who and also management of who's using my data and for which purpose, what is being used, what's being unused, so that you can, track those changes and make sure what you can share or not. And the second thing that is important is that sometimes there is that belief that you could have, and it's true for some data set, but not true for some others, like a universal definition of what quality means. And sometimes you might have conflicting definition per use case. So one use case might need something which is not what the other would need, and that's conflicting. And that's why you need to work with what is actually not new in data and AI is in data space is that kind of your stage approach where you have the raw data, the reference data, and then the per usage data. And in sometimes you need to work out data quality upstream, what is intrinsically what I need to capture and be there. Also, sometimes it needs to be at least prepared for different purposes in a way that makes it consumable by different application. And actually doing that kind of, what was called in the BI time, the staging,
Mm.
zone and so on. Or I think there is something like the gold environment and silver, etc.
Yeah.
And so all those different zones are critical because it's how you can manage some of those problems. Because sometimes you can accept that you will do a non you won't change the views for some consumers and you will change them for some others. And
Mm.
by managing that as a pipeline, so that's some specificities of that nature of how you build product that can be used and reused.
Okay. So now since last 5 years, you started your own venture, right? And so mostly you work on data projects or AI projects, or you just accept both and do end-to-end delivery. What's your focus area actually?
It's so we have let's say a marketing focus on data and AI. So it could be data and AI, data analytics AI project. We don't put so much difference in there,
Mm.
and actually I don't want to put so much difference in there. And but we also sometimes do broader than that, just any kind of digital project and so on. The reason why we focus on data and AI is that when you think about program management, usually in large organization, you
Mm.
only think about project, something that has a beginning, an end, and you put resources and so on and so on. But when you think about data and AI, that's not working because you have that patrimony aspect. You're building products, whatever even if you don't call that products, you're building products. Because those things, I mean, once you've built them, you need to continue to maintain them, to evolve them, to monitor them, etc. So they have a lifetime. So what is really important for data and AI is that notion of connecting what I call the patrimony, which is your existing data or what you or the one you need to acquire and how you're going to value them, and your transformation program, which is how you want to use that to transform. So, and in that context, I don't like to make too much differentiation, at least from my level, saying we just do a data, we just do AI, because it's a continuum. You need
Mm.
data to do analytics, and you need data to feed AI, and you need them to um, change business processes, etc., etc. So, and even that, that's a discussion we had yesterday with a client, is that if you start with a business need in mind, you don't know at the beginning, or you shouldn't know at the beginning if you need AI or just a dashboard to answer the question. You need to start from, that's a lot of things that I'm talking about. So the whole thing we're pushing for and we are advocating is that value-driven mindset. And value-driven mindset means you start always from the business need, not from what is a cool tool I can build or, from bottom-up things. You need to start from the top. And once you have that, then you can ask yourself the question in what is the right solution to answer that question. And sometimes people believe the solution is AI, and sometimes it's not true. It's maybe just, a fancy dashboard or any kind of statistical regression, etc. So you need to make sure that you find the right answer to the problem and not start with, I have a nice solution. What is the problem that I can put it in front of?
Yeah, yeah. Actually, you have put it very well that now it's a time, it's an era where everybody should start understanding that data and AI, rather than AI, cannot live without data, right? So data is the oil for AI, right? So it has to be bundled together. One cannot come and start implementing in AI and say, hey, internal team, provide massage enrich data for me. I need it for my AI.
Mm.
So that's one of the biggest blockers which I am seeing here and there in every project and different organizations that AI teams comes as a big bosses and Superman, and they come in and say, hey, we will build a rocket for you, but give us data. And data, they say, hey, whole data responsibility is on you, give us that. And that is where most as you correctly mentioned, is processes that which fails projects, is not technology which fails, right?
Exactly. That's not the technology issue. It's really about and even what you mentioned is really fun in a way. Not it's yeah it's true. It is really true. Is that people will come and say give us data for AI, but then if you don't know what you need and what you're going to make to use it for, what does it mean? And I have plenty of cases where having that lack of clarity. Um, um, Yeah, I give you an example. A few years ago, I was working with banks, and we were doing payment monitoring. So, trying to track the efficiency of the payment
Mhm.
process. And so we came and asked to retrieve payment logs for different systems, and trying to build that end-to-end view on the process efficiency and so on. And it didn't work. Most of the time, initially, it didn't work. So I came to the people and say, hey, we have a data quality issue and so on. And they didn't take it well. They were like, what do you mean data quality issue? We don't have data quality issue. It's a bank. We're a bank, so we're serious people. So the data you have are our processing logs. I mean, it's our transactions. So there is no data quality issue in there. And which is true because they use this data to run the bank literally. So how can you come and say you have a data quality issue when you run the bank with that? So and but and then I had to take a step back because almost when I came to them saying there is data quality issue, it was offensive to them, So they were pushing
Mhm.
back, saying, "Come on, guy, you come and you're arrogant and whatever." And so, but the main problem was when you think about each of the processing step, everything was fine. But when you think about end to end, then you had an inability to correlate whether one transaction in system A is the same as another transaction in system B because you had no unique ID and so on. So we had to be very didactic in explaining the problem is not with data at each step, is about how do we build that end-to-end view. So the data quality is about because we take a different angle, we can't reconcile anymore. And now we could start talking, in a way, but you have to frame that. Otherwise, you come to people and say, you have data quality issue and so on. So, and I could take example from retail, similarly, where I think there is a story where um, someone decided that for their reporting, they need, for not for activation, for sending emails, they needed to have the emails filled in all the customer database. So all of them. So so because it was not filled in, and how it goes in the shop. You go in the shop, they ask you to register. No one is going to take your email. They're going to say, "Don't worry, Mr. Mustafa, we take care of it. You will have your product." And so they put a rule in the system to say now email is mandatory. So that's all they done. They didn't talk with the people on the field and so on. They took it from, I need that data, I'm going to put it. What happened after 3 months is that the email database was 100% covered, all good. But the problem in there is that, and they discovered it when they tried to launch the campaign, is that 99% of that was no name at noaddress.com.
Oh,
Because people on the field, they didn't care about still, they just wanted to get rid of it. So they put whatever that looks like an email address in there, irrespective of whether it would be useful for the process and so on. So anyways, that's a few examples there.
now this is perfect. Now coming towards your ops, right? Before we jump onto that ops, I'm assuming that start strat ops, you call it, right?
Yeah, StratOps.
Yeah. So we have a lot of ops, right? We have dev ops, we have data ops, we have AI ops, we have many ops we have. So
FinOps. Yeah,
yeah, FinOps, right? I never heard about this one. When you raised it, I was very excited. Okay, there's another topic which can come into my book next. And I'm going to frankly bug you to write 2 3 pages and we put it there and you become a co-author
of
for
course.
my next edition. Yeah. So yeah. So so how do you see this whole thing? So okay, let's jump onto it. Let me
Yeah,
bring that slide
yeah, we
where
see it now. Yes, yes, that's right. Yeah.
yeah, this is. So tell us about this one. This is something new for me, and tell us what is this, how it came to picture. You guys were working on AI ops or ML ops, and what is the correlation between ML ops and especially this one? Because when you talk about AI, people always think about ML ops, right? And I'm assuming this is also near to AI, right? Please.
It is. It is. That very comes back to your very first question about how do we bring software development best practices to other areas and extend that. And as you mentioned, we started with DevOps and so what is DevOps initially? Maybe let's come to that. DevOps was initially when I started doing software, you had people doing development on one hand, and then you were literally handing that over to an operations team who are in charge of making sense of how they're going to deploy that product and run it. And so you had that kind of disconnect that was really bad between people building products and people operating products. And that never went well. So it was always somebody else's fault. Like those damn developers, they don't know what operation need, and developers say, yeah, anyway, the operations, yeah, they don't understand how the product works, so they do any stupid stuff in production. So then came DevOps, which has basically a way to build agility and bring those two dimensions together to make sure that it's smoother in terms of how do we make sure that developers work with operations in mind as a goal, and then operations learn also from how do they put feedback loops to the development and again, so kind of that reducing reducing feedback loops, for building feedback loops, reducing life cycle, allowing iteration, and then building something that is fundamentally more efficient. And that's what we
Yeah.
have basically everywhere in the cloud now. You have that ability to do continuous deployment, continuous delivery, and stuff like that. And that's what we do even at UI. Basically, we have this ability to deliver things almost anytime. We can update the product in production, and almost developers can do that. So then we started with DevOps, and then it has been, as you said, applied to DataOps. DataOps is basically applying DevOps principles on data engineering practices. So
Mm-hmm.
how do you build pipelines with the extension with data observability? And then you bring that to MLOps or AIOps, which is the same kind of principles with how do you apply automation to learning, so machine learning, training, learning, refining the models, etc. But also on continuous monitoring of AI models in production to identify drifts and alerts when you need to retrain them or when you need to roll back, etc., etc.
Hmm.
So all of that at the technical level, I think the trend is good, and same for FinOps to track the ongoing cost on the cloud, etc. Now, the main question that remains is when you think about the strategy in your organization and or in any organization and what's happening with those technical teams, there's a huge disconnect. Some people define a strategic, paper here, and then things happen, and there is no way to connect. So that's basically what StratOps is about: is to reconnect the strategy and the operating model around execution. So to make sure that we have a way to how do you define the strategy, how do you make sure it's executable, how do you make sure it goes into a quick feedback loop, and how do you make sure you have those feedback loops in the way you deliver. First, to be aware of how everything you do is linked to the strategy. And second, to inform the strategy with how you move forward. For example, I build the first iteration on the model. It's going well, not well, or can I reuse it for something else? Should I stop it? Should I continue? So all those discussions, again,
Hmm.
to build that, again, processed way, automation way, and so on. So how do you monitor what you deliver to inform the strategy? How do you use the strategy to really drive the actual delivery,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
is all the principles and where it comes from. Make
Okay,
sense?
so if you go one step back, right?
Yeah,
This is a end to end. Yeah, actually you are guru of it. You summarize it very 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 quickly. So I will try to break it down into multiple
sure.
pieces. Yeah. So see, okay, my obvious question: is it a process? Is it a tool? It's a product. What it is?
No, it's a so okay. So that's a process first.
Okay.
The tool, of course, and we do UE is a tool, and UE is a tool to support and efficiently scale best practices like StratOps in a way.
Hmm.
But so use the tool. But StratOps is an approach. It's really a methodology or a mindset. Similarly, like DevOps, DevOps is not a tool. You have tools to help you with DevOps, but DevOps is a mindset and a set of methodologies, and it's the same for StratOps.
Yeah.
So
So where
so
I'm
that's
coming? Okay, let me break my question further. So yes, it's a process. And you mentioned there's a tool as well because the moment you go and tell people, hey, this is the ops, a new process for you, people think it's just a visual, it's a logical, but where to implement it? Where
of course.
is that, touch, where is the physical piece, right? So that is what you just mentioned. There is a tool, which is UE tool, your tool, which manage this end to end. Now,
Yeah.
as a customer, I bought that tool, for example. I brought you in. Okay, let me also go a little bit from process angle. So you have a tool. Do you also have a team to talk to business and gather or requirement or strategies which they have, or your team is there to build a strategy along with the customer? How then we will see how it goes into the how this content goes into the tool end to end. So how it goes to start with.
Yeah, so we are not a consulting company. So that's some senses. So we work with our clients on um, defining those best practices in terms of methodology, in terms of processes. Now, if it's about walking the floor to talk to the business and have them, deploy that, do the change management and so on, it's usually either the data office team in at our client who do that, or we work with partners like consulting companies who typically do those kind of things, but they lack the tooling. They work with you on defining the
Mhm.
strategies, they work with you on trying to, but they don't have anything to operationalize that. So at the end, when they deliver, if they don't have UE, is they deliver a PowerPoint document that is already outdated the day you deliver that. So now we're making something which is a living version of your strategy, and the living version is how you connect that to the operating system. So
A great
back to
point.
your question,
Yes.
we really are providing the software. We are providing obviously advices and expertise and best practices on methodologies and processes and organizational pattern around that. But there is a limit of how much we can be And then if it's too much for us and the client teams are not equipped to manage a transformation program, then a consulting partners can come in to also help with that piece, which is
Hmm.
whatever.
Actually, you have brought a very good point that it's a living, so process is always living, right? But it's a uh, living product end to end. It's not like that. People come, they normally create a strategy for you, which takes 3 to 6 months. After 3 to 6 months, you come to know, oh, where is the tool. You go and find out the
Exactly.
tool. Then you train you set up trainings. You go for offshore trainings, train the pro. So it's a lengthy process, right? So I'm happy to hear that what you're saying here is once your vendor comes in, from day one, your tool goes with them.
Yeah.
And correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm going into the right direction, which would be the ideal way for people like me, that once a vendor working with customer, defining the strategies, at every level, those strategies will be injected inside your tool. Is that
Yeah.
correct understanding?
Exactly.
Okay, so you keep injecting, okay, this is my KPI. This is my use case. You keep defining, just like in DevOps, we define Apex features, use cases. You
Yeah,
keep defining that.
that's exactly that. We build what we call a value lineage, value lineage, which is
Mhm.
something where you start from what are your strategic business priorities and OKRs, how do you measure
Yeah.
your KPIs, OKRs, etc., depending on how you've been building that. Then what are the different use cases or initiatives that you've identified to support, to address, and improve those outcomes. And the last part is what are the technology investments? So data products, AI products, platform capabilities, applications, and so on that I need to deliver this use case. So you have that kind of link between what is my patrimony, what do I have, and can I reuse, or what should I build? What are the initiative I need to take to deliver
Mhm.
value, and then how I'm going to measure success, basically.
Yeah, so you have brought up the next point, which I was about to bring, right? There is a strategy, there is an implementation, and there is an adoption as well.
Oh, exactly.
Adoption has to be there. And once adoption plans are executing, there has to be a check and balances and checkpoints. Okay, you are creating a strategy. So how to say? Picture us for this one, right? When I'm a customer, you bring a vendor, vendor comes in, talk to me, input the strategy into your tool. Next, do you bring adoption policy or strategy, or you do go in implementation, and then how it goes, how it
Uh, uh,
maps?
so I, I'm not sure there is an adoption strategy per se, but there are adoption need for each and every product you build, basically. So adoption is part of the product management things that need to be done. So
Okay.
and uh, and to be fair, adoption starts way before you start building the product. It starts with making sure that you work with the business at the beginning to understand their need and design the solution you're going to bring to them. It's like the design thinking approach. So
Hmm.
we are animating that part, making sure that back to that living thing. Living thing means also that businesses have demands every day, not just when you build a strategy 6 months
Correct.
ago.
Correct.
And so then they need to have that way to fill in their demands. And then you have basically what we do in you is to have a collaboration platform where you have, a way to collaborate around qualification of those needs, maybe to put some design things, to evaluate costs, to evaluate risks. Where I mentioned here you have on side there is always, this for dimension we manage around the portfolio, which is what is the value we expect, and we're going to track that. What are the risk we identify and how we're going to mitigate? What is the regulatory aspect and how we're going to make sure that everything we do is in line with our own policy and with regulations, especially, with the coming AI regulations or with the
I was
privacy
about to come
regulations.
on that one. Yes, I was about to come on this one, privacy, security, and regulation bodies. Yeah.
Exactly. And the fourth one is how do we make sure that we control costs? So all those questions start from the very beginning. Initially, I have a new ID. Is this ID valid? And then you move to a next step of doing investing a bit more in qualification. Once you've done qualification, you still ask yourself the same question. Is it still valid? I'm expecting, et cetera, et cetera. So because then it's a way to start who's going to use the product because they need it. And then at the end, you need to keep working with them throughout the whole life cycle during delivery and so
Right.
on to make sure that when you deliver something, you're already sure basically that it match what they need because there are, and
Hmm.
you need to make sure that who is accountable for that.
Hmm.
It's a demanding part, and
Hmm.
sometimes it's forgotten. It's like as a business, you want something for a reason. So you're in charge of also making sure you're going to use it. Otherwise, you bear the cost. You need to shift that balance. It's not
Yeah. Yeah.
if business wants a dashboard and don't use that, whose fault it is, in a way. So you need, and
Right.
then so of course it can be the fault of the delivery side if you didn't make sure that you build something that is fit for them. But ultimately, you need to have that stronger connection. That again, back to that StratOps approach, connecting those different pieces together to make
Hmm.
sure that you have a really good understanding of why you do things and how people are going to use that. And also, back to your point, sometimes part of the requirements at the beginning are what are the adoption requirements? And sometimes
Yes.
that exists from the beginning. You don't need to build the product to know that. You need to know I'm
Correct.
going to train. I need to train people. I need to change workflows. I need to change processes. I need to change whatever handover. And so that's part of the plan.
Yeah. See, there are two kind of failure for me. I see failure in two ways. One is you are unable to deliver.
Yeah,
Second is you deliver, nobody use.
of course.
That's also a failure. I think that's a bigger failure. You end up
It
investing everything, nobody
it's a
use, means
exactly that's
your
so.
target audience impact analysis was not correct. Right? Okay, one more question. Uh, Being a customer, the moment you say you will bring as a product company, the moment you say you will bring a vendor, a question mark immediately comes into my mind. Will I be a piggyback? Will you build it while talk to me? Or you will come up, see, this is a fair challenge, right? Or you will come up with the templates or pre-implemented customer experience and you drive the customer and you say, hey, the first question you ask, what is your budget, what you want to achieve, where you want to go, and
Yeah.
start from there, and being a partner, start implementing. How do you see? How do you go?
So great question. So maybe I just want to go back to your previous point because that's something you that is really critical for me cause of failure
Hmm.
is, and you have it on the slide here, is that
Hmm.
that lack of, I mean, today there is that Gartner number. Basically, they say that 75 to 80% of all data and AI investments in organization are actually never used. So, in terms of failure, that's a huge, huge waste. Imagine 80% of things
Wow.
done,
Wow.
including 80% of data governance programs. So it means 80% of what people hardly work in terms of data governance, in terms of building products, in terms of building dashboard, in terms of building model, is never ever used in organization. And that's, for me, that's you know I don't know how you can support that because like if you spend 80% of your time building stuff that is useless for the rest of the of people, it's tough,
Yes, yes,
so
yes,
it's
yes. Absolutely, I agree with you, right? If you can recall in one of our previous panel sessions, I mentioned that the idea of Superman is like 50 or 80 years old,
mm,
right? But it's not like that people are flying like this now. Still, they're still trying. So
yeah,
your idea need to be practical, right?
exactly. So
Yeah, in our last panel discussion, we also discussed, remember that building structure, a structured chart. We have this chat GPT concept, this Gen AI thingy, right? Everybody is trying to throw structured data into it and try to build something. So I'm still the advocate. It's not going to be happening. The moment you say you throw a junk into a LLM and it can produce accurate results, SAP, Oracle, IBM, Terat, all those applications are gone, right?
yeah,
So there must so thinking and going into a plan that it is doable is a big thing. So that is where I am very much interested that what you're saying is it based on the experiences and processes. Hey, what you're saying is doable or not from day one. Is that the right
yeah, it's a
understanding?
and sometime, I mean, to be fair, sometime you need to be able to test hypotheses, because sometimes you don't know. So then it's and and I really don't want to infer that don't do anything unless you're certain or remove creativity and so on. But the whole point of creativity is that you need to fail fast if it doesn't work. You need to find ways to test stuff and to have very clear criteria on what are my success criteria for that hypothesis and should I continue, should I stop, or etc. So because then again, back to sometimes you have an idea and it's not doable for technical reasons. Sometimes it's not doable for cost reasons, and sometimes it's not
Hmm.
doable because early adoption is not there, and you learn from that, and it's fine as long as you know how to reduce your loss and cut the cost as soon as possible. And that's important because you will have waste always. I mean, I don't believe there will be 100%
Hmm.
success, and I don't believe it should exist 100% success because you will lose a lot of innovation and creativity. And all companies have, failed with some stuff. So, but 80% is not acceptable, because it's 80% of all investments. So in type of, so it's like, it's really tough. So I
So,
just wanted to come back to that, but then I can go to your other question in terms of, so and I like the question about adoption. So usually we it's kind of a balanced approach how we work with our clients because sometimes they know they have existing processes for part of the whole operating model, and so we will basically take the processes and digitalize them in the platform because we don't want to change everything. Of course, it's more
hmm.
about making those processes more efficiently deployed, more scalable, more and more executable and so on. And sometimes they don't know. So here it's always a balance with co-constructing something and providing, as you mentioned, templates or existing blueprints to say, and those templates and blueprints can be used in different ways. Either sometimes you really don't know what you want, so we put a template in place. You start using that, and you learn by what people don't like. It's like you say, "Oh, I don't like that. Let's change it," and so on. It's very practical. Sometimes people are better at
Customization.
challenging something existing, then if I ask you what do you want, maybe you don't know. If I say, do you want to go to the Chinese restaurant? You're like, no, I'd
Hmm.
prefer Thai, for example. Yeah, whatever. So you would. So it's sometimes easier to object than to have an idea out of the blank. So, but so we have different ways, but again, that idea is to make sure that we are, as you mentioned, really a partner with those clients on their journey because it's an ongoing process. And I always insist on that. There is no such thing as sometimes people ask me, how long does it take for UE to be deployed? And I say, that's a tough question because I would say having the first MVP that is providing value is actually pretty quick, depending on the organization, can be a few weeks to a few months. It depends on how far you want to go. But then it's never done because the thing is that it's like, similarly to DevOps practices, the thing
Hmm.
about the StratOps things is that the process itself is an ongoing learning exercise and improvement because you have many reasons. Maturity will change, organization will change, M&A will happen, new technology will come, whatever things. So we have a whole roadmap on that saying basically go step by step and be pragmatic about it. You build that, and then we're going to build another process and so on. So, for example, usually we start with um, building the inventory, managing the demand management workflow and process, and then maybe working on what is value tracking, and then maybe qualitative value tracking. And then down the road, you will see how do we make sure we have ethical and responsible AI guidelines in there. So all of those can come step by step when the organization is ready for that. And of course, we have them at each stage. Was it clear? Yeah.
No, perfect, perfect. Now coming, okay. So how about being a so you understand you have come up with the templates and all those kind of stuff, right? So based on your experience, right? How do you see the success rate has changed using this ops along with your product?
That's been a big change for clients because again, the thing is that if you want to animate sometimes hundreds of people across different parts of the organization and so on, you need that tool. And sometimes even what we call the value lineage view, which is very visual. You see basically that kind of stream from business outcomes has been a huge help for data and AI teams and for CDOs to um, communicate with the business, because sometimes that notion of value can seem very, very elusive. And I believe in a way is misunderstood because, and it's the fault of some people in the industry who insist on you need to compute the ROI of your use
Mm,
cases. And I don't buy that. Sometimes it makes sense, sometimes not, and
mm,
sometimes it's not worth it in a way. So, but that's why we talk about value and not just ROI, because value, it's not because you don't compute ROI that so that's an option. But being able to say for each and every use case why you've done that and how you define success is not optional. In a way, if you don't know why you've built something, why did you build it at all?
mm,
And the why can be, again, because that people use that for that decision, and maybe just being able to answer that and saying, and they actually use it, is enough as a question for many of the use case. So, for example, we have a client who is doing something mostly qualitative for most of their use case, and they have literally thousands of them. And when they have something that requires more than 1 million euro investment, so big one, then they move into financial valuation,
mm,
which is going to a more thorough exercise on what is the actual kind of ROI we can compute and so on. Why they do that? It's an arbitrary threshold. It's just to say when we invest big, it's worth being a bit more thorough on whether we'll have a return or whether it makes sense. When we invest on smaller things,
mm,
being more lightweight in how, so that's also kind of, that kind of processes that is to be effective, to make sure you don't try to boil all the organization down with going to small
mm.
details.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and yeah.
So how do you, okay, now once this is implemented, right? How do you monitor? Once we all know that all AI machine learning models, if not 80%, 60, 70% always die into the training phase, right? Hardly 10 to 20% goes into production, right? As you correctly mentioned, not 100% can be achieved. Not all 100% model that you create will go production either and give you a value. Okay, this 10, 20% are only those are ones, right? So
Yeah.
once those goes into production, and so now it's a data pipeline, right? Data is coming, is going out, people are using it. How many people are using, downloading, uploading, right? All those running the models, real-time models. So your product also inject data to do some kind of dashboarding as well, reporting that for C level, hey, this is the this is the projection should happen based on the ROI or XYZ, like 3 years break even should come. And this is the adoption plan we expected after going this thing live. 1,000 per month, 1,000 user increase up to 6 months. And this is where we are going. So do you have those dashboards as well for monitoring?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. We So again, we connect to existing systems for that to retrieve those, adoption metrics, data quality metrics, AI quality metrics, cost metrics, etc., from those what I call XOps platform, data
Mm,
ops, etc. So we capture those metrics to have them. And that's also something important because today, if you look at it in most organizations, you have again those business requirements on one hand that sit somewhere, and you have people who work a lot on doing those instrumentation and
mm,
observability metrics in on
yes.
the technical level. And then the big question rises: do those metrics match the expectation on the business side, and
Mm,
are they coherent with expectations? So that's why we do that connection, because basically, if you look at it, the requirements for those metrics come from the use case and come from the early stage of the defining the use case. And then you want to make sure that the controls in place, those metrics, match the expectation. Again, to take,
mm,
as you mentioned, this decision of if adoption is not here, what do I do about it? Should I, train more, help people, or should I stop it? Or, or maybe I need to reinvest. There's many, it's not it's a human driven decision at the end, but you need to inform that decision. So, there is those dimension about, connecting to those metrics to inform. And maybe to finish on that, sometimes when you think about technical layers, it's about connecting to technical systems. And again, that's really important because one thing you mentioned is that sometime, and I've seen that, data scientists are working on improving the predictions for
Mm,
a model
mm,
and making it better and better and better. And actually, based on the use case, we don't care because it's a very something average would be good enough for what you
mm,
for already to test the hypothesis and maybe later on, but the array of it would be good. Or on the other hand, if you have 99% of accuracy on one model, the data scientist could be very happy about it, but for some use case, it might be totally unacceptable
mm,
because the risk implied by that 1% of error rate is not acceptable. And for some time, so again, we have a client who's doing they have call centers for managing they have tens of millions of clients, B2C, it's a B2C company. And they use exactly that example, saying if we do something to help with managing calls in the call center and we have 99% accuracy, it would mean at least 10,000 problems to deal with per day. So it means
mm,
10,000 clients unhappy with how the bot dealt with them, and that's a much bigger problem than just having people to manage the call today. So if we want to apply AI there, we need to have at least 99.99% accuracy to make sure that we have the part of the problem we have is very limited, and
mm.
we can dedicate higher rank people to manage that. So that's an example, but there are again
No, which is
plenty of them.
perfect. Which is perfect. One more question, right? About notifications and alerts. Does your product also have that
Yeah,
notification on WhatsApp or email or SMS? Do you have that capability?
yeah, yes, of course, and because we can always based on different rules and so on, send notification to people by email or maybe through directly Teams, So I don't think we've done it with SMS, but SMS is just about having another API, so it's easy to send them also. But we have all those kind of automation engine to trigger actions based on some conditions.
You
So
have
something
that.
late,
You have
something
that.
under over
Okay.
budget. Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, another question about workflow, right? Uh, Workflow is another painful thing which I've seen that a lot of tools does not have, right? You introduce something, it should not simply go and implement into your
Yeah.
process. Someone has to review it, someone has to approve it, someone has to do it. Do you have workflows in your product?
Yeah, of course. The same. I mean, when we talk about managing, animating those, I mentioned we do collaboration and so on, and most of the things around that methodology is around collaboration between people. And of course, with you don't collaboration implies some kind of validation workflows, some review workflows, some approval workflows, et cetera, et cetera. And the idea here is that when you look at the end-to-end life cycle of any data product or AI product or a use case, you have internal workflows like review boards, investment boards, go no go for production, and so on. And so basically, we
Okay.
animate all those workflows to have traceability and also allow to do them in a digital way. Like you have that
Okay.
kind of tracking there. So yeah,
Okay.
it's a big part of things to animate workflow. And actually, we even have multiple level of workflows because sometimes you have some kind of sweep
Yes, yes.
approvals, stuff like that. So it's pretty
Yeah.
advanced on that angle. Yeah.
Yeah. So one more thing. So we are on notification and workflows. What about dashboard? Do you have out of the box dashboards, or you will build on? Or if you have, is it customizable, or you don't have but have the capability to build it? How?
So it's we have dashboards. It doesn't mean that we try to be a competition to Power BI and so on, of course. So we're not trying to be a general purpose dashboarding platform, but we have dashboard within the tool to help building those kind of reporting views and operational views around the portfolio. Everything, I mean, I need to mention everything in the platform is flexible. So dashboards, like our data models, like our workflows, our different frameworks and guidelines. So all of that can be customized always.
Okay.
And it's always the same principle where it's fully customizable. We can provide templates and examples in illustrations. And at the end, it's always tailor-made or making fit for each and every organization because especially dashboards, whatever we have on the out of the box will be maybe 80% accurate at best for
Mm.
what you want. And so it's more about then in the end, it's for especially for that, it's mostly about building what you want to see for your
Mm.
stakeholders and so on. It's not a lot of work. It's all that configuration is no code, so it's really about it's really easy to
It's all no
configure.
code, is it?
All
I was
no
about
code.
to ask that.
It's all no code. So it means, of course, as you mentioned before, we work with our clients on building those configuration and walking the path with them. But if they want to be autonomous, all that configuration is 100% accessible to our clients. So
Mm.
we don't want to make them, like dependent on us every time they want to change anything. If they want to be autonomous, they can. And of course, then depending on our clients, the level of involvement we have is varying, depending on
Mm.
how much they have people autonomous internally, how much they want to be autonomous. Usually, we recommend to stay as in an expertise track at least, to provide that kind of over time guidance and recommendations and best practices and recommend new templates and so on, at least.
I was about to ask that, right? Because this startup is about AI. So the obvious question will come, we are going through a process, right?
Yeah.
Is there any built-in AI models which will suggest you, hey, you're going in wrong direction. Why don't these are multiple options? Why don't you adopt that? Do you have those suggestions?
We don't have them yet. It's um, at that point, it's extremely difficult because maturity across clients is extremely heterogeneous.
Hmm.
So, so having the right foundations for that would be difficult. But we're working on different ways to extend what we do with AI, and including um, how to help people for example, find new ideas around improving certain business processes. So saying, looking, you want to improve supply chain. This is the kind of things people have done in the industry. So we're working with that with partners. We have like consulting companies, they have those kind of libraries of use case per domain and so
Mhm.
on. So if we can train the model on that, then we can help provide that kind of value added flow. And also going that route is saying if you want to do that kind of use case, you typically need those kind of data behind, and then guide
Mhm.
you in helping that assessment.
Mhm.
That's one. And then we have a other research track around how do we help people either ask question to the portfolio or fill in the different questionnaires in a more natural text way, like you do with ChatGPT, like basically you say, I have a new idea for that. And the chatbot is like helping you refine your ideas until it goes into the right forms to be structured.
Mm-mm-mm. So we have a time check actually. We have how much time left? Eight
Eight
minutes
minutes.
left.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's worth. I have two more questions. Well, I can ask so many questions, but I
Yeah,
think
sure.
two would be enough for next 8 minutes, right? One is this start off dependent on domain? Is it dependent? Is a different template for banking, different template for telco, different template for oil and gas? How it is, or it's generic way?
I, mm, I would say 90% of the principles are really industry agnostic. What is different is the content. For example, of course, the use case would be very different from one organization or the next one. And I think what the difference would be is in terms of risk approach, because in some industries, risk is way less, let's say, structuring than in others. Like for example, banking, of course, the risk and regulation is a part of their own operations forever. If you're in the oil and gas, it's slightly different because some part of the business
Yeah, I
don't have
agree.
that risk mindset. If it's what, and of course you have some risk, but it's less structural than in banks for different reasons, for good reasons. And it's a more industrial risk and so on. So that's one way where I mean most of the principles are really industry agnostic. Then the
Hmm.
second place where it might be different is organizational size, because the way startups being makes sense is different between a multinational organization with federated model, etc., versus a mid-size 5,000, 10,000 people company with more centralized. So that would change more things in how the model is being deployed. But other than that, we never saw industry to be such a structuring factor.
Yeah, so maybe before I jump on to my last question, I will ask another related question to this one. Regarding this regulatory requirement, right? There's EU regulatory body, there's PDB, there's GDP. Do you bring all those regulations built in out of the box in your system? For example, if in certain country PDB or GDPL is whatever it is implemented, you say, hey, we bring it into the system, and the way we move it, we will tell you your this process is conflicting this regulatory, or you should do this. Do you bring it out of the box?
So we don't bring all of them out of the box because we don't have the resources yet to be, proactive
Mm.
on all of that. So we have existing templates mostly for European frameworks like GDPR
Okay.
and EA Act. We also building partnership with organizations specialized on those topics to bring more frameworks because they have the
Mm.
expertise and they will like be some kind of joint offering.
Your
So if
product
you
is open. It means if you come into a
exactly.
country, a new regulatory body, so you're open, you simply go and inject it, it's there.
Exactly. So that it would be, and sometime if you as an organization have done the work of what is the framework you want to apply, we can just configure the platform with that. So
Okay.
it's fully
Awesome.
open. We can find local partners. We can work with organizations who've done the work, or sometime again, this notion of template is in nowhere a restriction. It's only an accelerator
Mm.
or an let's say something, but it's fully open for those different frameworks.
Okay. My last question, who knows, but I will find one more in my head, right? But one of the major reason is cultural change, and that cultural change is a show blocker, showstopper because of the training. Like
Mm.
how friendly your tool is, and how much. So, for example, my team if does not have any idea about the tool, how much time it takes for them to get familiar and hands-on.
Uh, I, So I believe the tool is has very good feedback in terms of usability and adoption by business users and so on. And that's why we built that, to be really a collaboration platform, not just for technical people, but for also non-technical people.
Mm-mm.
That's one hand. The second factor, which is really important, and I mentioned that before, is that there is a tool and how you configure the tool. That second part is critical for adoption because it needs to be
Mm.
built in a way where you guide the right people through the right processes and they're not burnt into too many questions that don't make sense for them and so on. So the way we design also the configuration of the platform helps with that, is built for that, because and we're very conscious about how we build things for adoption
Mm.
with your existing personas and target users internally and so on. And so and then yeah, we have good adoption by non-technical people and really become that kind of cockpit. So
Mm.
um, that's really important. And actually, I also should mention that for our clients, UE is actually here to help with literacy and adoption of data and AI at scale. Because one of the main challenge for literacy is not only training, in my opinion, it's training, but in a very pragmatic way. So giving view on people on what do we do with data and AI, what do we have in the plan, how do you connect business objective with what has been done, et cetera, et cetera. All of that is working toward literacy. And also what happens sometimes is then when you define a new use case, you're going to be able to identify training requirements for again, part of my adoption things, and then you will fuel the data literacy program effectively through UE. So that's, and
Okay.
through the
So
platform.
yeah, so we have 2 minutes and I got one more question.
Of
Okay.
course.
So see, once adoption is happening, can customer end user give a feedback on your product? And in related question is, do you have access metrics also there built in your system? Like, I want to open this product for my next 100 users. First of all, who will give access? Secondly, once they have access, can they feedback again?
What do you mean by feedback? Is what feedback from, um, I mean, that's a good point.
I'll give you example.
Yeah.
For example, there's a live model. Live model means you created a model for OCR. I can, as a customer, I can go and load my PDF document into it, and it can generate an output for me. That's a live model usage, right? So once I do that, so I'm adopting, and I feel, hey, my PDF template is not in. I want to go and give feedback.
You can definitely do that because similarly to the demand management workflow, you could have either a like a ticketing system, which would be either bugs or problems and so on that you can triage afterwards. So you can definitely have that as a process. I don't think. I mean, we've seen clients having change requests for products in the product. I'm not sure we had this kind of level configured with
Okay,
any client, but it's
something
um,
to add a
but that
feature in your product.
that's something we do. I mean, the reason why I know we do that is that we also use UE for our UE for ourselves to drive our developments, and we track
Ah,
all those things in UE
oh,
already. So it's we know we actually do it, but for ourselves. So basically, we have all clients' tickets are in UE, all client calls are in UE,
okay.
etc., and we track that against development features afterwards and so on. So it's all in there actually. So that's why it's a good
Okay,
one.
awesome. So thank you. So closing our call on good note. Thank you so much. Okay, where's my mouse? My mouse is gone. So thank you so much again for being here and giving your time out. And again, thank you so much. Pleasure to talking to you, and hopefully we can have more. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you
Have a
so
good day.
much. Thanks everyone, and have a great evening for you, Mustafa. Thank you.
Have a good weekend. Take care. Bye bye.